Only a few months after the death of Thomas Sankara, Ibrahim Traore was born. Apparently, Traore's birth was more or less the reincarnation of one of Africa's greatest presidents, Thomas Sankara. Now, this is not where the story starts or ends. It is commonly believed that beyond being a reincarnated Sankara, Ibrahim Traore is Sankara's ghost who haunts Burkina Faso. How true is this, and why are the men often being compared? Welcome to We Afrique, the channel for the lovers of Africa. We discuss about Africa, its people, places, food, and things. Support us by clicking on the subscribe button, liking, and commenting. Now back to the story of Thomas Sankara and Traore. Before giving you the similarities between the two soldiers who became president at almost the same age, there is something to keep in mind. The captains became more interested in liberating their people and taking them out of the thorned hands of colonial masters. Now that we have a background, let us look at 16 similarities between Thomas Sankara and Ibrahim Traore. The first is that they were both excellent students. Sankara and Traore were both good students while growing up. They were quiet but talented and quickly became popular among students and teachers. Sankara was mostly famous for excelling in mathematics and French and was admired for his enthusiasm for education. This was quickly noticed by priests who encouraged him to go to the seminary. However, he chose a more conventional school. This same enthusiasm was noticed in Traore, whose teachers still speak highly of him. He also later obtained a degree at the University of Ouagadougou, where he graduated as one of the best students. The second similarity between Sankara and Traore is that both men have been linked to Mali War. In 1974, Thomas Sankara fought on the border between Mali and Upper Volta, which he later renamed Burkina Faso. His being part of the war fast gave him fame as his strength was noticed. However, he later called the fight useless and unjust. The interesting part of this is that his said reincarnation, Ibrahim Traore, also became famous for partaking in the Mali War in 2014. At the time Sankara fought in the war, he was approaching 26 years of age. In a similar vein, Traore was also 26 years old when he joined the fight through a United Nations peacekeeping force called MONUSMA. Now let's get you to the third similarity between the African leaders. They seized power through military coup. Sankara and Traore are similar in how they assumed office in Burkina Faso. They used the military coup to remove their predecessors and seize power as rulers of the West African country. Before both Sankara and Traore, the country had already had numerous military coups. At the time Sankara became president, there were already 3 separate military coups in the country, which was then called Upper Volta. The fourth is that they are the only Burkina Faso presidents whose predecessors spent slightly over 240 days in office. Before Sankara, his predecessor, Jean-Baptiste, spent 268 days as president. Now this was normal until 2022, when Ibrahim Traore became president after his predecessor, Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba, spent 249 days in power. So far, there is no president of the country whose predecessor spent anything from 200 to 299 days in office. The only exception is Sankara and Traore. Do you find the similarity I just mentioned weird or interesting? Maybe you need to hear the next. Sankara and Traore became presidents at almost the same age. In August 1983, Thomas Sankara became the president of the West African country known as Upper Volta. He was just about 4 months away from being 34 years old. Sankara was at the time the youngest president in Africa. This also became the fate of Traore when he became the president of Burkina Faso in October 2022 at 34. He automatically became the youngest president in Africa and the world. The next is that they have been linked to Russia and different men named Vladimir. Unlike Traore, who the world keeps directly linking to Russia, Sankara had more of an indirect link with the European country. In the 1970s, Sankara came across several books, including that of Vladimir Lenin. Sankara read many books from Vladimir, a revolutionist, lawyer, and writer, and in no time, his political ideologies were formed. Let's shift our focus now to the man of the moment, Ibrahim Traore. Following the successful coup that brought him to power, many allegations arose that Russia was at the helm of the coup. Shortly after, he joined 17 other African heads to attend the 2023 Russia-Africa Summit headed by Vladimir Putin. The next is that both men are nationalists and Pan-Africanists. The love for Africa and the need for it to grow and develop is one other interesting thing that Sankara and Traore have in common. They believe that Africa has all that it needs to grow and does not have to rely on Western countries to develop. One common word they use to describe African leaders who give in to the Western world to gain favor is puppets. The next similarity that may interest you is that both men are religious. Sankara was a Christian and Catholic. In fact, he took work in his church seriously and was easily noticed by church leaders who encouraged him to attend a seminary. His parents also saw his dedication and wanted him to become a priest, but the Pan-Africanists chose the military. Looking at Traore, he is a Muslim and takes his faith seriously. Also, he was part of the Association of Muslim Students while at the university. The ninth is that their charisma makes them the most popular Burkina Faso leaders in history. Whenever you hear Traore talk, you would definitely hear Eloquence. In case you haven't heard Sankara speak, you may want to surf the internet. Then you'll come to terms that the men are eloquent and command respect with their words. It is no wonder that while Sankara was president, he was one of the most interviewed African leaders and he easily got the media's attention. His said reincarnate draws similar concentration. He gets the media's attention, so much so that he is one of the most renowned African leaders. Before Sankara, there was hardly any attention on Burkina Faso's leaders, and after him, the attention went down until Traore brought it back. Before we move to the 10th similarity, let us know which among these 9 is your favorite. And now to the 10th. Rather than working closely with France, a country that colonized them, they chose different countries. If you have been following this video, you remember that we earlier said that Sankara and Ibrahim Traore do not want to be puppets. In the 1980s, when Sankara was president, he defined his program as anti-imperial. This means that he distanced his government from colonialism. He reduced French aid by 80% between 1983 and 1985. He chose to liaise more with Cuba, a country that was at that time led by another revolutionist, Fidel Castro. Let us fix our gaze on what Ibrahim Traore is doing with French influence. In February 2023, only about 4 months after he became president, Traore's government expelled the French forces assisting in fighting insurgency in the country. Just as the world is trying to digest this, he expelled some French journalists. Of course, this was after he suspended media outlets called France 24 and Radio France International. So who is Traore getting close to? From indications and media reports, he is strengthening Burkina Faso's relationship with Russia and the United States. Also, he is tilting towards forming a good relationship with Mali and Guinea. The next similarity is that both men are not interested in getting rich with Burkina Faso's wealth. In the 1980s, when Sankara became president, he lowered his salary, used only one car, didn't use an air conditioner, and limited several other luxuries. Just about 2 months after Traore came into power, he denounced his salary as head of state. Instead, he wanted to receive his salary as a captain. When Sankara came into power, he reduced the salaries of wealthy public servants and forbade the use of well-off government chauffeurs and first-class airline tickets. Also, high-earning civil servants had to pay 1 month's salaries to public projects. Now, Traore followed not exactly the same path, but similar. In November 2022, under his regime, his ministers cut off 50% of their salaries for the month. This was to help the poor, especially those displaced as a result of insurgency in the country. Another similarity is that Sankara and Traore hold the same army ranks. Both men were junior military officers who passed the ranks of aspirants, second lieutenant and lieutenant, when they took power. They became presidents as captains. The next similarity is that they are interested in planet Earth, or what some call green. When Sankara was in power, he was very much interested in the environment. Under his leadership, bush burning was a crime, cattle roaming was stopped, and also chaotic cutting of firewood was put in check. Now back to Ibrahim Traore. The world's youngest president studied geology, the field concerned with the solid earth. Then in an interview with Voice of Africa in October 2022, he made a revelation about having trees without leaves and linking it to people's sufferings in the country. Like Sankara, his quest is to protect these trees as much as he intends for food to flow in Burkina Faso. The next similarity is that they include women in the affairs of the country. Thomas Sankara once said, "There is no true social revolution without the liberation of women." With this belief, he improved the status of women in Burkina Faso. It became a crime to force women into marriages and indulge them in female genital mutilation. Over 3 decades later, Traore came to power and decided to bring women on board. He had a face-to-face meeting with over 200 women in the 13 regions of Burkina Faso. The 15th similarity is that Karl Marx was a major influence on both men. Before Sankara's ideologies were fully formed and long before he became the president of his country, he read many of Karl Marx's books, which helped informing his ideologies. Also, before Traore's ideologies were fully formed, he also came across Karl Marx's works. His interest led him to become an activist in the National Association of Burkina Students, ANEB, a Marxist-inspired student organization. And now to the last similarity. When you see either of them, you'll definitely see a red beret hanging on their heads. I like to call their berets red, but some like to report the color as maroon. Whatever you choose to call the color, there is absolutely no way that you have come across either Sankara or Traore and you didn't notice their berets. Are there any similarities we left out between these two men? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share.